Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of Grim Dawn, I am going to be introducing you to my build guide for the Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker is the Arcanist and the Nightblade, and is pretty fun, all things considered, but we are in Ultimate, and that in and of itself should be enough to prove to you that this build is good in the end game. It's a YouTube video, though, so feel free to like, comment, subscribe your heart out. It's been working for me, and it might be a little bit difficult at times, but it's also super fun, and I like abilities that can span the entire screen. So that is what I play the Spellbreaker for. I actually have this class higher up than my Pyromancer that we were talking about just a couple days ago, but I'm in love with it. So we'll look at the devotions here. We've got 3 points on the beginning tree. Ultimately, all these points are here just to fill out the absolute minimum points requirement for a lot of these devotions. But our big one is going to be Leviathan. Leviathan, super important because it is giving us the Whirlpool, the 100% chance on attack. It's going to do just shitloads of cold and frostburn damage, which is where we're at with this build anyway. Really important, and it lasts for a very long time. You can also get multiple pools out depending on how many enemies that you hit after that 1.7 second skill recharge is over. So it lasts 6 seconds. It's less than a 2-second cooldown. You could probably get about 3 if you are keeping up with it, having on a good skill. We're also using Rowan's Crown, but we are only using half of Rowan's Crown just to get the active. And then there is Empty Throne, Toad, Scholar's Light, Spider, Hammer, because I don't want the Hammer and Anvil, just the Hammer, just for those simple stats on the armor, the defensive ability, and the armor percentage. We've got Tsunami to kick us off in the blue regards. That's going to take us to Kraken and Amatok, the Spirit of Winter, who is honestly letting me down a little bit. I don't love that devotion, but I guess it is what it is. And then we've also got Chariot of the Dead for some more defensive abilities, which is bound to Maven's Sphere of Protection. And that's it. Pretty simple devotion stuff, but you use it and see it so often when you play the build, it is nuts. It is a two-handed build at that. Two-handed is the way to go. We're going to do a lot of damage, but we're definitely going to have to bob and weave in the middle of most of this stuff. Got to keep our heals going, got to keep our shields up, and make sure that we don't get popped by some random boss ability. It's really fun stuff. Now we just got to kill Caraxus. So we've got our devotions helping us out in the background. We just have to give those devotions the opportunity to activate. You can see it. We've got the elemental pools of damage on the ground. We've got the Leviathan pools of damage on the ground. You can tell that the devotions are working. Our actual skills in this build are, they are all basically AoE. Everything that we're using, with the exception of the passives, is AoE. And the heal button, I guess. Even our Shadow Strike. We take Nightfall at the final tier of the Nightblade tree. That makes Shadow Strike put people to sleep and hit in a big AoE, which is going to be very helpful for setting up the whirlpools from the Leviathan. Since it hits in an AoE, it's always going to activate no matter what, because there will always be at least one enemy to be hit. Since it's only on, 2.5 second cooldown, it is very close to the cooldown of the whirlpool anyway, so we could basically have a whirlpool going out every time that we have Shadow Strike up. You're going to want to start with Lexra's Flash Freeze. That is going to be the biggest room clearing ability that you have in your entire kit. It is an Arcanist special, and it is the only ability that I like on the class, if I'm being honest with you, because it's just enormous. Absolutely enormous. And it freezes people, and it will activate tons and tons of devotion stuff. It is crazy. And If you are able to pick up Tsunami early on in the Devotion tree, or if you want to do that, I suppose, Tsunami and Flash Freeze work very, very well together. Because Flash Freeze can hit so many people, it will proc the Tsunami almost indefinitely. You'll just be launching, absolutely firing Tsunami waves in every direction, which is fantastic. But that being said, the freeze on the huge groups of enemies is really, really important, as well as all the damage it does. And that lets you get right on in there with your Ring of Steel, which is your next big AoE damage dealing ability. Ring of Steel is going to be mostly cold and piercing because we're going to take the modifiers for it. The next ability that we are working with, offensively speaking, is going to be the Trozen Sky Shard. It does offer some ranged damage, and that is something that you'll want to have because you can't always be face tanking everything, especially once you get to ultimate. It is impossible just to stand there and trade blows with this build. Don't forget, if you are picking up a lot of purples that you already have or kind of just suck, you can dismantle those, usually for a pretty big payoff. You don't have to sell them. Dismantling you do at the inventor and will oftentimes break your item down into extremely useful components or rare crafting materials, which I don't need to tell you is good stuff. Blade Barrier, which is the first defensive skill that we'll talk about for this build, because it is very, very strong, but it does make you stand completely still. It is basically the button that you'll want to use once you have got a whole lot of AoE abilities out with like your elemental pools and your whirlpools, because people will just run up and attack you even though you're standing still and you're basically completely invulnerable. Mirror of Arioctes is the other defensive ability that we have, but that button is more for jumping in, casting all of your abilities, and using a bit of auto attack presence after that. So you only want to use Arioctes when you are in trouble, number one, or if you have a whole bunch of stuff to unload, but know that a boss can basically one-shot you, or whatever you're attacking can one-shot you. So you jump in, hit your mirror, and then blow your load, followed by a whole bunch of running away. Using Shadow Strike on cooldown is really important for this build too, because it is such a short cooldown and is doing such a huge chunk of damage. It is almost impossible not to just well, I have it assigned to right click. I think it's better assigned to right click just because right click is where my brain wants to click the most. But if you don't have it there, have no fear. Just remember to press whichever button it is often enough to get everything out of it. It's movement, it's damage, it's devotion activation. It is everything one could ever hope for. Still trying to find Barrow Home. Not sure if we're going to be friendly or not with them. Haven't decided yet. Here we are. Here it is. No. Okay. Well, I'm a little bit upset about the direction of that jump, but whatever. Did it again. Literally just jumped in place. Not sure why. All right, Barrow Home.
A blessed well. A blessed well.
Yeah, you know what? We're on an XP journey, so we're going to take the friendly route so I can get as much out of these people, quest-wise, as possible. So that's more important to me than reputation farming at the moment. Okay, yeah, fuck. Just give me the quest, please. Thank you. Goodbye. Barrow Home, I hate you, but you give the experience, so that's important. Now, we didn't talk about our very last defensive ability on the activatable side of things, and that is going to be the Pneumatic Burst. Pneumatic Burst is very, very important because not only is it giving us a really big heal, but it comes with a lot of defensive stats as well, such as the ability to dodge ranged and melee attacks. But Pneumatic Burst, again, super, super important, and you can pick up the modifier for it to make the duration last a very long time, meaning you get those defensive stats for as long as possible, and you only have to activate the button to heal most times. And now we can talk about some passive abilities. So, number one, you're always going to want to take Maven's Sphere of Protection. If you're building an Arcanist that is a melee class, it's too good of an ability to pass up, and it will keep you alive very, very, very much longer than you would be without it. So Maven Sphere itself gives you 16% damage absorption, which is pretty helpful. But conversion is going to give you 35% energy absorbed from spells and reduce stun, freeze, entrapment, and petrify by 20%, as well as giving you 20% slow resistance. Now, as far as the other passive abilities go for this build, we have got Veil of Shadow, which is going to be giving us some increased passive damage and defensive ability there. There are a few skills that are item specific, but as far as ones that we're picking up, we've also got a lot of points into Iskandra's Elemental Exchange, and those are coming purely from gear points as well. Star Pact is the big end chain ability for the Arcanist class. It's going to give us a lot of cold and frostburn damage, which is where all of our damage really comes in. It's also converting from Aether and Physical to cold damage, so any of those damage types that come in are getting a huge boost to our regular skills, and it gives you a cooldown reduction, which I don't need to tell you is very, very important on a class that uses nothing but abilities. And then there is the Void Ward. That is just given to us by Imbued Silver, which is on our two-handed weapon, giving us chaos resistance. Super important stuff there. Gotta stay alive. You know how that works by now. Alright, but we talked about skills, we talked about devotions, let's talk about the gear that we have at the moment. Most of this is level 70 to 80 gear. I haven't found a whole lot of stuff yet for the end game, mainly because we're not 94, and that's where the next big gear spike comes in. But currently we are rocking the Empowered Prismatic Eviscerator. We've got the set of the Mythical Ruby of Elemental Balance and Sapphire of Elemental Balance. The Frost Shard Crown, really need an empowered version of this, but that is okay. The Frost Dread Cuirass, level 75 is needed to get this, but it's giving us 2 into Star Pact and giving us that Frost Dread presence, which is really important. Chillmane Mantle, the mythical version of this unlocks at 94 again, but since it is giving us Sky Shard, cold damage, and it's giving us that really cool Howling Wind effect, I like it. Right now, Mythical Runic Bracers are the only gloves that I have that I really like, and they do give us a big shield. The Prismatic Shield, very, very, very strong defense. Spellweave Leg Wraps are kind of all that I have at the moment, pants-wise, that feel any good, so we're sticking with them, but they're not super important. Gray Magi Foot Pads, again, not the most important things, but they're giving us some of the resistances, and 117% reduced entrapment duration. Really just cannot be rooted at all with these boots. And then we have got Undying Oath for our metal, which is giving us some pneumatic burst points, as well as cold damage. And the Soul Well ability isn't the most important thing in the world, but the maximum cold resistance is pretty good. We've got 86% on that bad boy right now, which is nuts. Dreadweave Girdle, giving us Trozen Sky Shard points, as well as an 8% chance to avoid melee attacks, so that's coupling super good with Pneumatic Burst and that stat. And then as far as the... oh man, this needs to change. Iskandra's Balance is the relic that we're working with at the moment, but that will likely change to something a bit better in the cold damage department. Yeah. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think of this build. I really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it, so hopefully you do too. Peace out.